And we would like to welcome yes the next two speakers that will be with us today. So the first one is TP Goguri. So I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Okay, it's a pleasure having you today with us.
Thank you
And
so much.
so it's also, I think, for us and for the organizers in particular to see that in every conference that we organize, we gain more speakers coming from different parts of the world that are interested to join our community and share their knowledge. So it's for us. I think it's a big success, or we can count it as a success of this conference in having you speaking here today. So how did you discover our event?
Uh, I search it online, and then there are a couple of the Twitter basically is the way I know I came to know about this thing, and I'm like so much into women in technology. I am one of the contributor for women in technology user group as well. So I collect all the information of women speakers and I upload to the website. And I also one of the organizers for diversity, equity, and inclusion user group as well. So I'm like more connected. I can say like I'm so emotional to women in technology and like diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I'm very happy to be here, and thank you so much, Christina, for giving me this wonderful opportunity.
Oh, it's our pleasure and the pleasure of the main organizers. So
Yes, yes.
Cynthia and I, we are moderating this track, but there are a bunch of people, many people behind this conference that have been working for the last 2 months very intensively because they,
I know that Anna Maria is one of the organizers, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I know
yes,
her. Yeah. Thank you so much,
yes,
Anna, because she
and
was the one who was coordinating with me, and then yeah, thank you so much.
yes, we have Ana Maria, we have Yolanda, and we have also other people such as Ines and another Cristina Tarambini, and many other people. And they are organizing, until now, they organize two conferences a year.
Hmm.
And every time we have new speakers joining that are inspiring other women to start being more active in the technical community, sharing their knowledge. Because so we see that you are a database engineer, so you are a database or a data scientist professionally,
I'm a
and
DBA actually. Yeah.
so and have a lot of experience already working in that field.
Mm,
Okay, so
awesome.
what are you going to talk us so to present on today?
So this I can say this is like a personal experience because I have no idea about cloud and everything previously, like 6 months ago. So I put my personal story into the presentation as well. So this session is basically about the cloud DBA, like what are the responsibilities are going to be for the cloud DBA. So if you're on-prem DBA and if your servers are going to move to the cloud, you do not have to panic that you are going to lose your job, because many professionals out there are having this panic of thinking that they might lose a job once they move to Azure. So I was in the same situation, but
Mhm.
once I came to know, once I started learning, I then figured it out that that's not the case, and we are still going to be needed as a DBA in the cloud, but our responsibilities are going to be um, added more. We need to learn new skills, but then we are still going to be needed by the company. So I thought it would be really good idea to put this thing together so that other professionals also can get that information of, oh, I still have my job. We do not have to search for other jobs you know
Mhm.
and
Sounds great.
I'm so happy that Anna Maria is one of our speakers for Power BI Fest 2021. So I am one of the organizers for Power BI Fest, and she was one of our speakers. So I did not realize until she told me. So I'm so happy to, back and forth we are talking to each other of one of the events. So yeah, I'm so happy.
This is great. So we are getting more and more into the global community.
Right, right. So do you think I can share my screen?
Yeah, of course. If you want to start, you can share your
Yeah, sure,
screen.
sure. So are you able to see my screen?
Yes,
Yep.
So I just put the subtitles also in so that if you do not understand my language. By the way, I thought of telling you I was listening to the previous speaker at the Spanish, right? It's like a soothing sound on my ears. I really love it. I do not understand, but oh my God, it's so wonderful. I feel like I have to learn it.
thank
But
you.
I should start learning Spanish now because I really love the sound, and then it's so soothing, and the modulations are like wonderful. I'm so happy to be here, and if I can go ahead and get started, I can.
Of course.
Awesome. So you are able to hear me properly, correct?
Yes, we are.
Awesome. So thank you so much, W4TT, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to present for your conference today. Thank you so much. Special thanks to Anna Maria and my moderators today. Christine, thank you so much for having me. So today I would like to present on a note to the Cloud DBA. But before starting my presentation, I would like to thank each and every sponsors of this event. Without your support, this event would not have been possible. Thank you so much for that. So my session is going to be Note to the Future Cloud DBA. A little bit about me. I'm a DBA with several years of experience managing SQL Server and databases. I did my master's in computer technology here in United States at Eastern Illinois University in Chicago. And I'm a Microsoft certified trainer and Microsoft certified solution expert. I did my master's in computer technology, like I said, and I am organizer for a couple of user groups. I'm an organizer of diversity, equity, and inclusion user group, as well as um, data platform, AI, and South Florida user group. And I do volunteering for Women in Technology user group as well. So basically, I'll collect the information of wherever women speakers are in data platform, and then in the data world, I'll gather all of the information. It's a very big task because I have to search everywhere. I'll grab that information and I'll upload to the Women in Technology user group website. So that's my job. And apart from my work and then my community work and my regular work, I love to do arts and crafts a lot. I get peace from it, so it's like a meditation to me. And if you'd like to contact me later, at DBA Nuggets is my user ID for Twitter, and dbanuggets.com is my website, and you can contact me on LinkedIn as well. Just type my name. So yeah, that's it. So one day, 6 months ago, it's a Monday and not so fun day to me. And there is a reason for that because there was a couple of other DBAs along with me, and we were invited to a meeting where all the managers and then the higher management people were there in the meeting, and we have no idea what was going on because the subject line of the meeting was like future of our company. So I thought it's something else related. It's a regular session or it's a regular meeting or something. But then once in the meeting, we came to know that they were planning to migrate half of our servers to the cloud. The moment I heard that, I was in a terrible panic. I was similar to this situation. I thought of going to a room alone and then cry and then, because I was like so scared. Um, the you might ask me, why are you so scared listening to that, right? Because I was not into the cloud. My entire career was in the on-prem DBA, and I do not know what will happen if moving to the cloud. And I already heard many people talking about and many articles out there saying that if we move to the cloud, there is no need of a DBA, and all the responsibilities are going to take care by Microsoft, and they do not need any DBAs. We have to go and search for other jobs. So I was in a panic. I believed that, and I did not talk to any other people from my company. You know why I won't talk? Because they will know that I don't know nothing. They might, they might remove me from the job. I was so scared. I don't want to, confront anybody. I don't want to say anything to anybody. And I was so confused and panic. I searched many websites, and half of them said, yes, you will lose your job. Better to go ahead and find another job. But half of them said, no, as a DBA, you are still going to need. But whom do I trust? There are no particular resources that are backing up them. They are just saying. So I was in a panic mode for several weeks. Then I decided, why there is need to panic if I know what is the cloud offerings, and if I know how to move the servers from on-prem to cloud, and then start learning step by step. Maybe I'll find out it myself of if we are still going to need, because I know about my job. So I will know once I go and learn the cloud, I will able to know if they are going to still need me. And DBS are the ones who have to migrate all of these servers to cloud. So why I should panic that they will be hiring somebody else to migrate these? If I know all of these information ahead of time, maybe I can assist my company. So that's when I started my Azure journey, and it I feel very nice that I was able to started learning, because now I know that DBAs are still needed. Yes, the new skills we are going to still need to learn, but we are we are so valuable for the companies even when we move to the cloud, because databases are not on our infrastructure, but the databases on Azure infrastructure. But the databases are the same, the performance issues that we face are the same, and as a DBA, we are the ones who have to go ahead and manage those databases. So there is no point in panicking. So as an overview, we are going to see what are the deployment options we have for an Azure, what are the cloud DBA responsibilities once we move to the cloud, and what are the service tiers and compute tiers that the Azure offers, and how to create your first Azure SQL databases. And I'm going to provide you the resources that you need to start your Azure journey. This is basically a generalized session of if you are going to start your Azure journey and you do not know where to start, because as an overview, if you see, you have many services that are being provided by the Azure, and you do not know where to start, and you are like just like me 6 months ago, I thought of putting this together so that it will give an overview and then give you that first step to go ahead and start your Azure journey. So stick around if you are new to Azure, stick around if you are already into Azure, because this will give you a refresh of all the service tiers, compute tiers, and the cost perspectives of. It is so important to know all of this information, because as a DBA, we are the ones who have to assist and give that amount of money that we have to pay to when we are going to Azure, at least the estimates how much it will cost for a company to move to Azure. So it is important to know all of this information. So DBAs get ready to become the cloud DBA. So what is our role going to be? So our role as a DBA is definitely going to be expanded. But wait, Microsoft is going to take care of all of the everything, correct? Not everything, but certain responsibilities, like, for example, patching, upgrades of our database if you are in the Azure SQL database. Azure SQL database is versionless, meaning you do not have to upgrade it. Microsoft is going to take care of all the upgrades even without you knowing about it. And your applications runs fine when that maintenance is going to happen. So not every responsibility is taken care by Microsoft, but these are like the tedious task, like you do all the time, every single time you do the same things, like patches, right? Patches is a boring task to do as a DBA. Those kind of tasks like backups are being taken care by Microsoft. Anyway, if you're on-prem, you're still going to use the third-party tools to take the database backups. So that doesn't matter anymore, right? We are already buying the third-party tools to take care. So Microsoft is going to take care of the backups this time. But the existing responsibilities like the performance tuning and assisting the developers if there are any connectivity problems, you are still going to take care of all of these responsibilities. But the new responsibilities, yes, you have to know the new responsibilities as well, because the environment in Azure is completely different when compared with the on-prem servers, right? So you need to be familiarized with how the things can be done in Azure. For the same things that we do in on-prem, how do we do it on Azure? Let's talk about the deployment options. We have two main deployment options like infrastructure as a service and platform as a service. Under the infrastructure as a service, we have SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machine. Under the platform as a service, we have SQL Managed Instance and Azure SQL Database. Now let's go ahead and dive deep into what are these and how they differ from each other. The left side, Azure SQL on virtual machine, is similar like the SQL Server on your virtual machine, the one which you buy, the Windows Server. But the difference is that um, you are building the virtual machine on the Azure infrastructure. And you might say, okay, then if I have my own VM and if I put my SQL Server on Azure VM, what is the difference? Like, what is the advantage, main advantage? The main advantage is if you have your SQL Server on Azure VM, the backups are automatically taken care by Microsoft. And if you have the older versions of SQL Server, like SQL Server 2008 or lower versions of SQL Server, which are not being supported by Microsoft, once you move to Azure, the support is going to be expanded and taken care by the Microsoft until you upgrade your services and until you upgrade to the newer versions of SQL Server. So that's the benefit. That benefit you do not have if your SQL Server is on-prem. And you can deploy a SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machine in two ways. You can manually go ahead and install the virtual machine and then go ahead and install SQL Server on it, or you can directly do it with a single click by using something known as images. So what are these images? Images are nothing but the pre-installed packages of the operating system as well as the SQL Server. So you can go ahead and choose the different type of versions you want, and with a single click, your Azure VM will be installed, and by the time you open it, your SQL Server is already there. So it is very easy to install these with a couple of clicks. And by using these images, you get something known as IaaS extension, which will unlock certain features when you are on Azure. But if you are manually going ahead and deploying, you do not get this extension by default. You need to go ahead and manually install this. By the way, this IaaS extension is free. Now let's talk about the SQL managed instance, which is right in between. If all of the things that you wanted to manage is only the SQL Server instance, but you do not want to take care of your operating system, like when your SQL Server is on Azure VM, you are responsible for the operating system. Like you have the ability to go ahead and see the files on operating system, but if you are in Azure managed instance, you cannot see the files on the operating system. You do not have control on your operating system where your managed instance is. All you have is you can take care of all the instance-wide capabilities and features. You can go ahead and change those, but you cannot control the operating system. That's the difference between Azure's SQL Server on Azure VM and managed instance. But you can still use the SQL agent, DBmail, linked services, service broker, all of these capabilities, you can still use them. And this is the intermediate deployment option if you're planning to move to Azure SQL database. Because once you move to the right side your screen, right? That's the Azure SQL database. If you do not want to monitor or manage the Azure SQL instance, or if you do not want to take care of the operating system, you wanted to go ahead and build your brand new cloud application, and all you want is a database and you do not care about the instance or the operating system, Azure SQL database option is right for you, because all you get is a database in full recovery model, and you cannot place the database in different recovery model like simple or bulk bulk uh, in bulk recovery model. You cannot do that. So uh, just a minute, actually my headset is going to die in a few minutes, so let me remove my headset and talk. Can you still listen to me?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So Azure
Yes, no
SQL
problem.
database. Thank you. So all you get is a database. You will not get an instance, or you won't get any operating system, and you can use all the database level scope features like the query store or the other features, but you do not know where your Azure SQL database is hosted basically. And this option is very useful because it saves a lot of money. You do not have to buy any infrastructure or anything. All you get is a database and you pay for the database. You scale up or scale down as per your needs. So that's the difference between three of these deployment options. And let's do some of the feature comparison between the Azure SQL database and Azure SQL managed instance. So in this session, we are mainly focusing on Azure SQL database, because if I talk about the other deployment options, that will definitely be a 4 to 5 hour session. So we are mainly focusing on Azure SQL database. So when you compare some of the features like change data capture is not available in Azure SQL database, but it's there in managed instance. Common language runtime is not there in Azure SQL database, but it's there in managed instance. The cross database or three-part name queries like the database name .schema .table name, that's not there in Azure SQL database, because all you get is a database. It's not like a disadvantage. It's like a feature that has been inbuilt for the Azure SQL database. The cross database transactions are also not possible, but there are something known as elastic queries where you can use to jump in between the Azure SQL databases. You can use elastic queries. The database mail is not there in Azure SQL database because all you get is a database and not an instance, right? Resource governor is also not there, but especially for the Azure SQL database, you have automatic tuning option like automatic plan correction or automatic tuning for the indexes. So when you turn this option on, it will go ahead and scan all of your indexes that are not being used, and it will give you a nice report of if you go ahead and want to delete all of those unused indexes, or if you want to take a step back and look into what you wanted to delete and what you wanted to still have. So you have these automatic tuning option, especially available for Azure SQL database, and it's not there for Azure SQL managed instance. And SQL Server Agent is not there in Azure SQL database, but it's there in the managed instance. Again, there are several other features that you can compare. I have put the document down below, the Microsoft Docs. You can go ahead and see the entire future comparison. So what will be the DBA responsibilities? The cost optimization, I have placed that point in the first place because even though your databases are on the Azure, it's still on the Azure infrastructure, and the databases are still there on somebody else's server. So it works the same, right? The queries that we run, they might take more resources if we are not optimizing, like if you are not optimizing those queries properly. So as a DBA, you need to still make sure you run these queries properly, you tune them properly so that they will save a lot of money, because it's so easy for us to scale up and scale down.
If you tune the queries properly, that means you are saving a lot of money to the company. And the name of, like as a DBA, your name will be, they will recognize you very well, because you are saving like a lot of money. Once you optimize your queries, they might need less resources to run the same queries. So it's a cost optimization as well. And from the database perspective, monitoring the performance, setting up the alerts, fixing any outages, right? Even if you are on Azure, that doesn't mean that you'll not get any outages. Your application might be outage and you are the one who have to still support those outages. So we are still going to be needed. And the task that we have to automate, as if you are using Azure SQL database, you do not get SQL agent to run your jobs. So how do you run your jobs? You will use the PowerShell to automate the tasks. The same task you put in the PowerShell, and you create the task to take care of those jobs. So you are the ones who are still going to be needed. The migrations, right? If your on-prem servers need to be go to the Azure, you are the one who have to plan that migration to migrate those databases to Azure, and you are the one who are going to tell the company how much the estimates are, the cost estimates are, how much it might cost to move to the Azure, and which service tiers and compute tiers we have to move to better take the advantage of our databases in Azure. So we are still going to be needed. And we are going to leave some of the responsibilities to the Microsoft. Like, for example, we do not have to worry about the infrastructure and hardware, like especially for the Azure SQL database. All we get is a database. We do not have to worry about any other things, which will save a lot of money as well. And Windows upgrades, patches, those are taken care by Microsoft, which is anyway boring task. And automated backups, again, we are using third-party tools to take care of those backups anyway, so those are taken care by Microsoft. And there are different levels of security that once we move to Azure, we need to take care, all the way starting from our subscription, resource group, resources, and the databases, users, logins, different levels of security that we are still going to take care of. And automatic tuning, the automatic tuning is one of the features that is available in Azure SQL database, where it will go ahead and automatically tune, but we have to be there to look at the report and decide which of those indexes need to be dropped. So we are still going to be needed again. So let's talk about the cost. What are the purchasing options we have? There are two different purchasing options. One is DTU model, which is known as database transaction per unit, which is the oldest model and it is not recommended now by Microsoft. They recommend the other model which we have is vCore model. But the database transaction unit is nothing but it is basically bundle of resources together, like the memory, CPU, and the space, and the IO, the space of the database. They all combine it together. It is a bundle, so you cannot separate between those compute and the storage tiers separately. So let's say, for example, you are choosing 50 DTU. Everything, like, you cannot separate, okay, I'm using more memory but I do not need much space, but still you are going to pay for the entire DTU. But that's not the case with the vCore model. vCore model, we can separate out the compute and the storage separately, like you can choose the number of vCores and how much storage you want separately. You can scale up and scale down as per your needs. And we have three different kinds of uh, tiers here: the general purpose, hyperscale, and business critical, which we are going to talk in the very next slide. But we have a couple of other benefits if you are using under the vCore. So if you have the on-prem SQL servers licenses you already have and you wanted to move to Azure, you can basically you can trade off those licenses to move to Azure and get up till 40% of discounts as well. So you have that option only under the vCore model. And if you wanted to move your on-prem SQL servers to managed instance, all the all the model that you can choose is only vCore. You cannot choose DTU model. But if you wanted to move to Azure SQL database, you can choose DTU model as well. This is how the DTU model look like. Like if you see there, the data max size, if it is 10 GB in max, even though if you scale down and scale up to 2 GB, 3 GB, you are still going to pay for that 10 GB. So entirely together, you are going to pay for the DTU. But that's not the case for the vCore model. Those two are completely separate. So you can scale up the vCore meaning the compute, like how much memory, how much CPU, those are the vCores. So you can go ahead and scale up and scale down and see how much it might cost you per month, the estimate right side your screen. As you scale up and scale down, those digits are going to change. Now let's talk about the service tiers that are especially under the vCore model. General purpose, business critical, and hyperscale. As you move from the left side to right side, the money will be increased, but also the features also be increased from left side to right side. Let's talk about the general purpose. General purpose is like generally available to the general usage of those businesses. This is the lowest budget model. All you get is only one primary server. You do not get any secondary readily available read-only secondaries. Like if you wanted to move to the other server, if you have any problem and if you wanted to move to the other server, the secondary is not readily available. It might take a little bit of more time to create that readily available secondaries when compared with the other service tiers out here. And especially if you are using the general purpose service tier, you get two more options like provision and serverless, which we are going to talk in the very next slide. But under the general purpose, your database can be scaled up until 80 vCores, and your database size can be only 4 terabytes. When moving to the business critical, it is a bit more costly than the general purpose, but you have those two readable secondaries readily available. And if you are having OLTP systems, then the only option that you have in Azure is to move to business critical, and because it supports in-memory OLTP, and very less latency out here when compared with the general purpose, but a little bit high cost when compared with general purpose. And it can handle up till 128 vCores, and also you can scale up till 4 terabytes of space. But your database is growing a little bit big, then 4 terabytes, then you have to move your database to hyperscale, where it can handle up till 100 terabytes of space. And once you move to hyperscale, you cannot go back to general purpose or business critical. That we have to put it on, that we have to remember. And there are 4 readable secondaries readily available here, and it can handle up till 80 vCores. Again, for the hyperscale, there is much less low latency, and if you have to bring the database point in time restore, it is very quick, no matter how big your database is, because there is this inbuilt algorithm built in within the database where they store the data in the different layers of their cache that will help to restore the database point in time very quickly. Again, for the complete list of the differences, please follow the source down below. Again, the compute tiers, especially under the vCore model, under the general purpose, you have these two options. Let's take a simple example, like you have a business where you connect to the database all the time. In that case, if you are choosing the general purpose, you have to choose the provision, because under the provision, you have those traffic going on to the database all the time. You will choose the minimum and maximum number of vCores. And no matter if you are connected or not connected under this tier, you are still going to pay for the maximum number of vCores that you choose. But that's not the case with the serverless. Let's say you have a timesheet application and your employees are connected only on Fridays up till Monday. In that case, you are not using any of the other weekdays. So in that case, you can save a lot of money by pausing your database, where you don't have to pay any of the compute, but you are only paying for the storage during those days. Basically, you can pause the database during that period of time where you are not using your database, which will save a lot of money. And you will choose the minimum and maximum number of vCores for the serverless tier. And no matter if the traffic is connected during that Friday to Monday, no matter how many connections you are getting to the database, it will only scale up and scale down between those minimum and maximum number of vCores. How to create our first Azure SQL database. Again, this is a generalized session. This is a basic session. If you wanted to start learning the Azure, you can learn a lot from it. And so if you go to the portal.azure.com, if you have your own subscription, or you can sign up for free, you'll get $200 of credit to use for up till 1 month, so that you can play with all of these services as well. Go to the portal.azure.com, go ahead and search for the Azure SQL database. If you do not find it in the search bar, you can, if you do not find it under the Azure services, you can go ahead and search for it, Azure SQL. Once you select that, a portal will appear where you can go ahead and click on create. Did you observe we have discussed of all of these deployment options: SQL database, SQL managed instance, and SQL Server on Azure virtual machines. In this session, we are creating the Azure SQL database. So go ahead and click on create. We have different tabs here to go ahead and select from. Let's talk about each of these. Under the basics, go ahead and select the subscription and the resource group. So any resource that you create in Azure have to be created under a resource group. So every time you create any resource, or you wanted to add something, you need to mention the subscription as well as under which resource group you wanted to place this service. So go ahead and create the resource group. I'm just giving a name, demo. Give the database name. It have to follow certain rules here, specifications. We need to follow that. And create a server. So you might be asking me, but we are just creating an Azure SQL database. Why we have to create the server? But we need to know that we are getting an Azure SQL database, only the database, but there should be a way that we have to connect to the Azure SQL database, which is in a management studio. If you wanted to connect, there should be something to connect to, right? So that's when we'll create a logical server. Go ahead and create, click new, where you'll give the logical server name and then the password, confirm password, and provide the location where you wanted to create this Azure SQL database. It is better to create in the location where you are from, which will also give you the very less latencies, and response times will be better. So go ahead and create the location. Click on the location. It will ask you want to use the Elastic Pool. So basically Elastic Pool is nothing but you are putting many databases together so that they can share the resources. But here we are only creating one database. So click on no. Go ahead and click on compute and storage to see what all options we have. Go ahead and click on configure database. Here, if you observe, we have talked about service and compute tiers, the general purpose, business critical, right? This vCore model and DTU model. So we wanted to choose the general purpose model, which is the lowest budget one. I clicked on that. And under the general purpose, we have provision and serverless. So I would like to go ahead and click on provision for now. And go ahead and choose your configuration options. Under the configuration option, the hardware configuration, as you go from top to bottom, the price will increase. So basically the bottom two, DC series, MC series, are for the hyperscale and like hyperscale options for those databases more than 4 terabyte of space. So I would like to choose the basic one, Gen 5. So click on that. Scale up and scale down the resources that you wanted to use here, the vCore and max size. And would you like to make this database zone redundant? I do not want right now, so I'll press on no. Hit on apply, and then backup storage redundancy. How do you want to put the backups? So that there are three options here. Locally redundant, meaning it will place the copies of the backups on the primary location. Zone redundant, meaning it will place the backups on the primary location at the same time at different zones. So basically, let's take an example. I'm living in Kentucky and I'm creating an Azure SQL database. So I'll place the backup copies in my location and at the other location, different zone location within the Kentucky area. So that's the zone redundant. Geo-redundant is where I'll place the backups on the primary. At the same time, geographically, globally, the backups will be replicated asynchronously to the other locations around the globe. That's the third option. So I wanted to choose the locally redundant backup. Go ahead and click on networking, where it will ask you like, how do you want to create this network connectivity? Do you want no access, which will not provide any access? Public endpoint is the least secure one, and the private endpoint is the most secure one, because you will be connecting to the Azure SQL database with private IP address. If you choose public endpoint, you'll be connecting using the internet, which is public IP address. For this demo, I'm choosing public endpoint. And then underneath the firewall rules, I will just keep it the same. I will add the current IP address because I want my local computer to connect to the Azure SQL database to show you by connecting using Management Studio. So I clicked on yes. And then I'll place the connection policies the same by default. If you go to the security, the secure option, like they recently added this service, Azure Defender for SQL. So basically it will go ahead and check for any vulnerabilities, like if there are any suspicious activity going on, you'll immediately get an alert. So to use that, you need to pay $15 per month for server if you are using this service. I don't want to use it right now, so I press a no. Go to the additional options. So how do you want you to create the database? Do you want to just create the name of the database and no data in it? Or do you want to restore a backup? Or do you want to create a sample database, which will create an AdventureWorks database? So I would like to just create an empty database, so that I want to show you how to create a table and then how to retrieve the data from it. So I clicked on none. And the collation is always the same as you are seeing here. If you would like to change the collation, this is the right time, because later you cannot change the collation. And the maintenance window is where I told you, right, the upgrades and then everything happens taken care by Microsoft automatically, which will happen in between this window. 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. is a default, so I would like to place it as a default. And give it a tag if you would like to. Tags are nothing but like if you go to a shopping mall, you'll take a dress and you'll have how much does it cost on the tag, right? So it's like the same. You can name your tags for your resources, so that if you go ahead and see how much it will cost later for that particular resource, it is very easy to identify based upon the tag. The tags, that doesn't do any purpose, they doesn't do any action by themselves, but it's easy for recognizing the how much they are going to cost. Go ahead and review everything that you have chosen and then click on create, which will take a little bit of time, 1 minute or 2 minutes to go ahead and deploy. First the logical server will be created and then the database will be created later. Once the database is ready, go ahead and click on go to resource. This is how it looks like. The AdventureWorks 1 is a database name, and right side your screen you will see the server name. So go ahead and copy to the clipboard, which will copy, and then open up your local management studio and paste the server name and give the SQL Server authentication and give the login ID and password. While you have created, when creating the logical server, you have provided these credentials. So give them and hit on connect, which will connect to the Azure SQL database. But if you look into the database, it looks like the instance itself, but it is just a database that we get, and logical server is the one which we are connecting to. So you will still have the logins and then users that you can create, but you are not going to see the Azure SQL agent, right? The SQL Server agent in it to create the jobs, right? So go ahead and let's go ahead and create a table with 2 columns and three rows in it, just to show you how it will retrieve the data. So retrieve the data by doing the select from the table, which will give you the results, but you can easily find the difference between different tiers. So if you are having low latencies and if you do not see the queries running so fast, you can change the tiers and see how it will affect and how fast the results are. So that's how we create the database and that's how we retrieve it. But how to do the backup and restore? Like I said, the backup and restore are taken care by the Microsoft. Our backups are globally replicated and full backups are taken every week once, and transaction log backups are taken every 5 to 10 minutes, and differential backups are taken every 12 hours once. But how about you wanted to take the backup and you wanted to restore on the lower environments, right? Like development servers, how to take the manual backup? You can still take the manual backup by connecting to the Azure SQL database by using the Management Studio. Right click the database, go to the task, go to export data tier application, where you can go ahead and choose where you want to save the backup on your local disk or on the Azure storage account. So I wanted to save it locally. So I'm choosing the local disk, and it will always create the backup in the format of backpack file, BAC file. So go ahead and do that and click on OK, where you can restore that database later. And you can also take the backup by using the Azure Data Studio. Once you connect to the Azure Data Studio is simply a free tool that you can use to connect to your Azure resources. So once you log in by using the ID and password to your Azure Data Studio, right click the database and go ahead and click on backup, which will again take a backup of backpack file. So we have seen all of these deployment options, and we have seen the service tiers, compute tiers, what are the purchasing options we have, and how to create the database. But once you are ready to migrate your servers to Azure, what are the tools that you need to start your migration process? There are a couple of tools that you can use. The most important one is the total cost of ownership calculator. If you type in Google Azure TCO, it will give you a tool where you can go ahead and calculate how much it might cost, the estimate amount of cost to move to Azure for your resources. And there is also something known as Data Migration Assistant, which you use all the time when you are migrating your databases to the newer environments. Not only to check for the compatibility issues that you have to fix before moving to the Azure, but it also uses the SKU recommender that you can use, where it can go ahead and analyze your resources, like your data workload for your databases. It will suggest you which compute tier and which service tier will be better for your databases once you move to Azure. Again, those are the recommendations that you can start going ahead and look into. And you have other services as well, like Azure SQL Migration Wizard and Azure SQL Migration Services. You can go ahead and use them. The last one, for that service, you need to pay a price to use that service. The key takeaways are in this session that we have discussed is DBA jobs are going to be still here. We are not going to lose our jobs, so do not panic if you are a DBA. And learning Azure SQL is so cool because you did not see any of the coding. It's easy to take that first steps to go ahead and start your journey. Maybe in coming months, you can go ahead and take some of the certifications as well, because the potential employers are checking for these checking for the potential candidates who have these certifications. If you are an Azure engineer, data engineer, or if you are a cloud DBA, they are looking for the specific certifications. If you have those, then it is likely that you'll get a job, because they put these certifications in the requirements of the job itself. So it is easy to go ahead and take that step. If you look everything from the top view, it is so annoying and confusing. It's overwhelming to see all of where to go ahead and where to start, because we have these many resources. But if you can go ahead and take that first step and start from the basic fundamentals and take those fundamental trainings, maybe you can go ahead and take for the next level certification and prepare for them. And anyone can get started. And as you move to Azure, it will save a lot of money to the companies, and that's the one of the reasons why they are planning to move to Azure, because it is less maintenance, and it saves a lot of money. So how do you get all of those resources that you need? Just go ahead and scan this QR code, which will take you to my website, where I have neatly provided all the resources. You can go ahead and use it for free. And there are also something known as virtual training days, that many people don't know. I just came to know a couple of months ago. So these virtual training days are happening throughout the year by Microsoft. It is for free. You can take the training, and by the end of the training, they will give you a certification coupon code, where you can go ahead and take the certification for free, which is like you'll save a lot of money to take the certification. You can go ahead and get it for free. So I have provided all the links to that in my website. So go ahead and look into it. And these are the resources that I use to prepare my presentation. And all the best to the future cloud DBAs. And thank you so much for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Christine, for moderating my session. And I would like to thank each and every sponsor for sponsoring to this event. Without your support, this event would not have been possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DP. It has been a great pleasure for us having you here. So we hope to see you more often at our events, maybe some other events. Maybe we will join you at the events that you organize for your own community. So
Sure.
I think the session was really, really great. I already left a comment on the IM window, because it's super competing. So I think, some of us, in my case, I would like to, or I will need to see, to watch the recording again and go little by little, because you provided so much information. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I hope I did not run into other presenters' time.
No worries, no worries, DP. DP, we will manage. We will manage. We will readjust somehow, because we didn't want to interrupt you, as your presentation was wonderful. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And if you would like to contact me at DBA Nuggets, is my user ID, and dbanuggets.com to find all of those resources that you need to start your Azure journey. Hopefully you liked it, and thank you so much once again, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dipti, for sharing your journey. See, I hope to see you soon.
Thank you so
Yes.
much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.